That's my secret, cat. I'm always angry.
Alright. I ran out of patience. On the roost!
Hey everyone, Captain, big fan of Spider-Man.
Avengers! Assemble. Hello, Peter.
Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and with me today, breaking down Secret Invasion Episode 3, is Casey McGeorge. How are you today, Casey?
How's it going, everybody?
It's going well. It's going well. What I want to also say before we start this is I did a fun superhero draft on our episode of Elseworlds. So that is also on this feed, so you can listen to that. But it was me, my co-host from Elseworlds, and one of his friends, and we drafted superheroes, top 5 snake style draft. And that was a lot of fun, and we did it across all publications. So felt like that's a good episode to share on this show as well. I had first pick, so everybody can tune in to see who I picked first. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We're going to be doing Super Villains draft this upcoming week, so prepare yourself for that as well. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun here.
Here's the question with that. If you draft Thanos, does he come with or without the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Stones?
Well, okay, that's something I should clarify too. It's not so much about drafting like a team to win in a 5v5 fight. We did a different twist on it where it was more about like their popularity in the zeitgeist and who has the most lasting, like picking 5 heroes that we think probably have a good history of cinema and history of comics and like into the pop culture, and then also a bright future as well in that. I guess like who's kind of on the up. So it was a lot of fun. I think most people could probably guess the first 3 picks of the draft pretty simply, but yeah, it was good. Villain wise, I think that's a lot in the air too, because I think some people say Batman has the best rogues gallery. Some people say Spider-Man does. Then you have the popularity of Thanos lately. It's going to be some interesting times when we get to that.
Well, like I said, does he come with or without? Like,
yeah, it's a good question. But we're going to be talking episode 3, Betrayed of Secret Invasion. We're now halfway through the series. It ends on July 26th. And Betrayed was directed by Ali Salim and written by Roxine Paredes and Brian Tucker. And it premiered July 5th of 2023 on Disney+. And its synopsis here is the infamous Disney Plus one sentence here. It's actually only 6 words. Fury uncovers a rebel Skrull plot. Which I feel like he's been doing the whole show. So kind of an interesting way to shorten the episode here. But I guess generally, Casey, what were your thoughts on episode 3 as we hit the halfway point?
I like this one. This one we got some sort of answers on Fury's wife to an extent. We saw domesticated Nick Fury, which kind of baffles me. Nick Fury making breakfast for his wife. That's just weird because I don't see that as something Nick Fury would do. Just because he's Nick Fury, like, doesn't fit. We got a good, funny line about golf in there. We got a little more Emilia Clarke. Finally, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe we'll have a little less Emilia Clarke going forward. Yeah, I really like this one too. I think this episode was shorter. It was on the shorter side. It was almost like maybe 40 some minutes.
Well, they're all averaging about like 45 minutes or so, which
because I think the first two were 55 or something.
I think an hour at the most is probably the sweet length.
Mm-hmm.
If you go past that, you go to like an hour and a half, you're actually in the movie territory.
Right.
For some things, 30 minutes is better. Like I think She-Hulk for She-Hulk, because of the comedy aspect.
30 minutes worked very well. Yeah.
30 minutes was real quick, but they were able to tighten everything up and get it in there. But yeah, I mean, 45 minutes or so, I don't mind that. It didn't drag on, but it didn't go by too quick. It seemed like a nice thing to get you in, get you intrigued, and then leave you wanting a little bit more.
Yeah, so I guess we can kind of dive into it here. So Gravik kind of starts off the episode pretty early here with his idea that he says, which is, we're going to make some super scrolls. So for people that don't know, there is a character called Super Skrull in the comics. He first appeared in Fantastic Four number 18, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. That was back in 1963. But he is a Skrull that is also has superpowers, and he has a whole range of powers. Now, there are other Super Skrulls later in comics as well, but what Super Skrull can do is he has greater versions of the Fantastic Four's powers, which are, the Thing, Invisible Woman, Human Torch, and Mr. Fantastic. So he has like the capabilities of that. I don't think we're going to see that in this show. I think what we're going to see is, I think in episode 1 it was, we saw scientists working on something.
Yeah.
And one of them said Groot, which was, about Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Groot has powers kind of like Mr. Fantastic. He can stretch out his arm because he's growing limbs. And there was all these other, I think, Cole Obsidian, which is one of the children of Thanos from Infinity War that they were studying. He's kind of like a big brute, like the Thing. So I think what they're going to do is kind of take these different things that they're studying and give him powers of characters we already know in the Marvel universe, and not like the Fantastic Four ones. So that's kind of the background for Super Skrull, and that's kind of what his pitch here is how are because people had said before, what, in episode 2, when they were like, what about if the Avengers try to stop us? He's like, I got a contingency for that. And I think this is what he's referring to here. He's referring to giving all of these Skrulls powers to make them super.
And we saw a little bit of that in this episode.
Yeah. So he also has people infiltrating the Royal Navy, which is to launch missiles at a United Nations aircraft. That's going to be like the height of the episode. The big climax is Talos and Fury trying to stop that with Gaia's help. Gravik even meets with Talos to kind of talk about, negotiate a parlay, as they say. But really just kind of is Gravik saying, hey, I could kill your daughter at any time, and you're lucky I haven't sent her back to you in a body bag, which makes Talos like leap over the table.
I mean, you're talking about the man's daughter here, though.
Yep.
That's going to be a touchy subject, so I don't know what kind of response he was really anticipating off of that one.
Yeah, and I think he wanted the rise out of him, honestly, and we get this kind of cool scene where everyone in the cafe turns into Gravik, so you get the notion that they are all Skrulls there. But I also really like the moment when Gaia bumps into her dad and gives him like the burner phone. And
wait, was that her? Because I just remember.
Yep.
See, okay, so I knew after he left, when somebody bumped into him, obviously, I knew that was done on purpose. I couldn't figure out who or what it was.
Yeah, so I believe it's Gaia because I think later on in the next scene they say like Gaia gave me this phone. But what I also think led me to believe that is Gravik kind of sees this happen and he kind of starts chasing the guy, because it's Gaia disguised as a guy. So he kind of starts chasing the guy, and then a car kind of stops him from going out in the street. And as it crosses, we see now Gaia outside of the car.
Yeah,
I
but
think
that
it was
van
that
was
guy
already
booking.
there. Like that van wasn't even moving. Like it was just already there. So that little spot kind of confused me for a second, but
Yeah, but then on the other side of it is, I think it was like that guy. Yeah, I think it was Gaia booking it back to the car before Gravik comes out, and then able to change when Gravik gets held up there a bit, because it is also like Gaia was sitting in the car and she's supposed to be sitting in the car. So I do think Gravik picks up on this because later on he says that like their whole plan for the United Nations thing was to try to pull out who the traitor was.
well, even before that, he didn't believe that the guy that was killed in last week's episode had given the information for the safe house. And he had he kind of cornered Gaia there wherever she was sleeping at. So I believe, or at least I think it implies, that he pretty much knew she was the traitor from the get-go. And he was trying to, I thought he was setting up a false plot with her because then they were in a car or something somewhere, and that's where he gave information out about whatever flight it was, at like 2,200 hours, he said. So I was thinking he was setting her up because she was the only person that was going to have that information. So if something happened with that flight, obviously he could nail it down to her. But I think from the get-go he knew he hasn't trusted her in a while.
No, I think he's been suspicious of her probably before she even started helping them. Is kind of the way I would think, right? Like, I mean, how much can you actually trust, especially if it's true, right? Because like Talos keeps saying to Gaia, if you want to learn what happened to your mom, ask the people that killed her, talking about Gravik's men. So if you are Gravik and you did kill her mom and you are on opposing sides of her dad, I would assume that the whole time you're not being this like naive person thinking, oh yeah, she's totally on my side here. I think at some point you also have to be thinking there's a chance she's even if she was maybe at one point on my side, there's a chance she's figured out what's happened and is also not on my side anymore, is what I would think at some point. I don't know how much I could trust her.
I just don't know how much I could trust someone based on the fact that we're fighting against her dad.
Yes, yep.
Like that whole, I mean, the whole espionage thing is weird anyway, because there's always double and triple and quadruple agents and everything else. But when that person is so intimately connected, because that's her dad, like that just, I don't know.
Yeah. I think he was almost maybe setting this up the whole time. I wouldn't be shocked if Gravik had always planned to, what we see at the end of the episode, not to skip though, is he shoots her. Though I don't know if she's going to die, right? Like we've talked about last week, Emilia Clarke is kind of the big name attached to this. What if this is how he's going to superpower her up as a Super Skrull or something?
I've seen something on that Disney kind of spoiled that.
Oh, did
already with some other stuff, so I won't get into it. But I kind of saw that earlier this week, and I was like, oh, well, that kind of weird. But plus, I mean, like we said, she's the biggest name attached to this that hasn't already been in the MCU. So to spend the money to get her in there, just to have her in there for 3 episodes, and then be like, well, that's it, peace. kind of stinks. Like it's almost like a what was it, Kurt Russell or no Steven Seagal in Executive Decision or no Air Force One? It was it where yeah, I think it was Steven Seagal back in his heyday. He was in I think it was Air Force One where he was in like the first 15 or 20 minutes and then he died and then that was it.
Well, actually, not to derail us too much here, but in the show Lost, originally the character Jack was going to be played by Michael Keaton and was going to be killed off in the first episode. And they were going to make Kate the main character. But once, for some reason, I guess Keaton fell through or they changed it and they hired Matthew Fox and changed the whole plan for the character. But yeah, sometimes that stuff happens. They're like, we're going to cast this person and we're going to kill him off in the first little bit here so people get confused. I don't think they would do that for Amelia Clark, though, because then, like, it's a little different because in the MCU, like, this is a continuing story that you can build around, and, like, hiring a person for, like, what is probably cumulative, maybe 30 minutes total of screen time for her so far.
In 50 words or something. She hasn't spoken much. Speaking of Lost real quick, They tried to milk Dominic Moynihan from being from Lord of the Rings forever until they realized...
It got me to watch it, though.
Until they realized people were more intrigued in the story and then, Evangeline Lilly and Matthew Fox. But they were like... They were hammering that home of, like, Dominic Moynihan from Lord of the Rings. And it's like... I hadn't seen Lord of the Rings yet. I still haven't seen any of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh, my goodness.
But that's one of those, like... Dude, enough. So I'm telling you, our other idea could work. Yeah,
I know. That's what I was just thinking. I was like, we might have to do that. But no, that did make me watch the show, though. I remember sitting in my grandmother's living room at the beach. She had a house back down at the beach at one point, but so we'd always travel over there, like 2004 summer, and they were already starting to show trailers for Lost, and it would always end with the Dominic Monaghan, Charlie saying, "Guys, where are we?" Right, and then it'd be like, "Lost coming this fall," right? And I was like, "Oh my god, that's the guy from Lord of the Rings." I was a huge Lord of the Rings fan at that point too, so I was like, "I'm gonna have to watch that show." Totally forgot about it until the night it premiered. I walked downstairs to grab a snack. My parents are watching it, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is that show!" And that is one of the only shows I think I could say, big cultural zeitgeist shows, that I could say that I was there like day one, actually watching it, night one.
That thing was
in 8th grade.
A phenomenon.
Yes.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, every show kind of goes through those. Maybe only MASH is the show, MASH, and that like grew viewership all the way up to the finale because it was like the highest watched show of all time for a while. We digress, but we can move on. So Gaia sends Talos the information about the Royal Navy attack, which was a ship called the Poseidon, right? The sub. And Fury is still upset with Talos, but he is going to meet him at the bar for breakfast. This is very British, I think. A British pub with breakfast.
But before that, how about the personal strife between Fury and his
Fury and his wife. Yeah. So is this a marriage due to love here, or is this some sort of like, I don't want green card situation? I don't want to say green card situation, but
I think there was love.
Yeah.
And she brought up a lot of good points. Like, she kind of had to live her life. And this is stuff I've brought up before. And because weird wormholes I go down and things I think about because I overthink things. Like, she brought up the blip. Like, Fury was gone for 5 years because of the blip. And she had to move on with her life in a way. And then he came back. And then she thought they were going to rebuild together. And then he left voluntarily to go work with Saber in space. And I mean, I guess you can't really tie Nick Fury down, but like, yeah, that's got to be a rough relationship. And that can't be healthy.
Yeah, she says to him, "I warned you when you snapped, and then you came back, but this time you willingly left after, you came back and you're up there at Saber all the time, and how am I so yeah, so I do think at maybe one point there was love. I liked seeing the flashback at the beginning of the episode where we start with like the 1998 New York, right?
Here's a question for you. And this is starting to show up in a lot of shows and movies, including Indiana Jones, which you just saw. Mm-hmm. What do you think of this digital de-aging that they're doing? Not like how good it is, because that can vary between whoever's doing the effects, and they're obviously getting better time and time. But now the fact that they're just, maybe they're able to tell stories a little better, so now they're like, oh, we can just get this dude who's 88 years old, have him still act, and we can just digitally de-age him and have him put him back 50 years. And
it's a good question, because like you said, it is Indiana Jones, and it has been a popular thing since, what was the first movie to like, Ant-Man was kind of like the first one I remember like seeing it prevalent, where
with
Michael Douglas, yeah,
and
it looked pretty good then too. But it's like one
Fury
scene
again in Captain
Marvel. It's been Indiana Jones. They've used it in Star Wars. They've used it in so many things now. When you look at, I think some people will say it's too much. I think some people will say recast, but you know what? Or put them in wigs. But you know what else takes me out of it? Because they'll say like, oh, this takes me out of it, right? But you know what takes me out of it as well is really bad wigs and makeup and recasting. Recasting is the thing that takes me the biggest thing out of it a lot of times, because I'm like, I have to somehow think that this guy is going to turn into this guy later on. Unless if they nail the casting. Side note, a show that really nails the casting where you question if it is the same person is the show Dark on Netflix. It's a German show. I mean, they found people that look almost exactly the same as each other, like 33 years apart. It's really incredible.
And I know sometimes they can use like family members, like, someone's son, and because they'll already have that resemblance. But it's just, it's one of those things. I'm not against it, but I just look at it and I see them. I think they're starting to go to the well too much for some of that. Because like I said, we saw it in Ant-Man and the Wasp. We saw it in a bunch of Marvel stuff. Saw it with Indiana Jones and that Star Wars. And now my question is like, where else are we going to start seeing this? Because now that they have great technology to do it with, are they going to start doing this more and more?
Well, I think this makes more sense for like these properties we're talking about when it's flashbacks than if like a lot of people think it's going to lead to just like, oh, we're going to do a whole movie of this now. And I don't think that's going to happen in the sense of like, like I don't think in a couple years you're going to see Indiana Jones 6 and it's all Harrison Ford as, 30 years old, because there's still some wonkiness with it at times. I think this show's been doing it well with Fury, but what I'll say is there were some times in Indiana Jones where I think it looks really good. And then there was other times where I was like, I can tell that's, especially when you're still hearing 80-year-old Harrison Ford, and when they see the back of Harrison Ford, like there was one time he's helping somebody out of the water, and the shot of his back is like him kind of like hunched over 80-year-old Harrison Ford, but he's supposed to be 30. And it's like so there are some cracks in it at times, but some people like Sam Jackson just sound the same, where I feel like it's working so much better.
I think you hit on something I hadn't thought of, which is the voice too.
Sometimes they try to edit that too, though, and that can be more telling at times.
But yeah, so there was some strife with Fury and his wife, which that led to him having breakfast with Talos in the pub, cutting a tomato up, which I don't know. Never had a tomato for breakfast, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if that would go well. But yeah, then they, jump in the car. He asks for help. I like this exchange later where he says, I don't get the dog thing, is what Talos says
I like the fact that he made him ask. He told him, use your words. And he made him say,
Yep.
I need you. I can't do this without you, or whatever it is. Or I'm useless without you. And Fury's a proud man.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he even made the comment later, like he had to apologize once today, and that's all he's got in him.
Yeah, when he called Olivia Colman's character.
But and he kind of walked away for a second, and then he had to turn back around and tell him, and that had to sting him a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He is not somebody that likes to say I'm sorry or apologize. And he contacts Fallsworth, who is able to give him the information about Robert Fairbanks, which they're going to go to his home. This is where Talos says he doesn't understand the dog thing, and which I thought was funny. But it kind of turns serious here, right? When Fury says, "Well, I've been cleaning up your shit," constantly, and I liked this perspective from Talos here, where we got to see something we haven't seen with the Nick Fury. When we were first introduced to Nick Fury, he was Nick Fury already. He was, a secret agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. He was putting together the Avengers team. He was
Iron Man, right?
He was the man. And we saw that continue. We kind of got to see desk jock Nick Fury in Captain Marvel. And we just knew at some point he's going to rise through the ranks there. But what I like from this little twist here is that the reason he had kept rising and kept getting promoted is because of things he had access to due to the Skrulls and their shape-shifting that he benefited from, that helped elevate him to that level where maybe he shouldn't get all the credit, right? And I think that is awesome for Talos to actually call out.
It is, because how many people do you think knew about the Skrulls? Not many, right?
Not many at all. No.
You're talking about like top men, or top men and women, like top people.
Top
That's it.
men.
Top men. But like your only top people are gonna know about the Skrulls and what their capabilities are. So yeah, if he's stopping terrorist plots and he's able to do all these other things because of the info he's getting from his Skrulls out there, and people don't know how he's getting this information, he's just going to look and seem like a rock star, and he's going to rise and rise and rise. And yeah, he's helping them out because they have a place to live on Earth, and I'm sure they have their normal lives in some way, but yeah, they're kind of just getting passed over. Like, they're the ones doing all the dirty work and making these things happen, and they're not getting anything for it.
Yeah, such an interesting thing that we never really thought of. Like, how did Fury get to the rank he was in the short time of 13 years? Captain Marvel takes place in 1995. Iron Man's 2008. At that point, there's 13 years there that they need to cross. And, having a whole bunch of Skrulls that can shapeshift and help you get trade secrets is certainly a way to do it, and may have actually spurred into this whole problem that they're facing right now, which is some of these Skrulls being in high positions throughout the whole world. They could have been agents of Fury back then that have now turned, or just kind of setting the precedence of, I need you in these places, and them listening and doing that. And now, like I said, just falling under Gravik's control. So he may have created his own problem here, Nick Fury. But yeah, so I thought this was a pretty tense moment. I knew that the ship probably wasn't going to fire on the UN, but I really liked having the one guy in the military there that was like, there's no way this order is real, and he's like panicking that he's going to have to make this move on the UN.
Okay, so was this... I don't think this was a nuclear bomb, right?
But no, I think it's just a regular missile.
But so I listened to last podcast on the left, and they just did a 6-part series on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Obviously, the only 2 times an atomic bomb was dropped. And I've thought about this before. I don't know if I would ever be able to handle the pressure of something like that. Now, obviously, there's a lot of safeguards in the way if a nuclear or atomic bomb or hydrogen bomb was ever going to be used again. But, and there's codes that have to be authenticated and keys that have to be turned. But, so the guys from the Angola Gay who dropped the one on Hiroshima didn't really know what they were getting into, right? They did, but they didn't. And history has come so far. And now we know the aftermath and everything else that went along with it. Whoever it is, either in one of these submarines or silos, and I think maybe Crimson Tide might be the best way to look at this. Could you really, if something happened and either you had to make the decision yourself or an authentication came down, could you really be the one to turn the key and push the button that could cause mutually assured destruction and end the world? And that's a lot, man. That's heavy to think about.
Yeah, like you said, this one probably wasn't even nuclear, but just the panic that this guy was going through especially because it seems so far out of left field for him, right? Because at this
down
point,
a United Nations plane.
Exactly, it's United Nations. You're England, they're the UK who are part of the United Nations, and it's like, he's like, this doesn't make any sense. Why would we do this? But so do we think the other guy was a Skrull then? Because he tried to still force it after it was booted, right?
Remember, there were 3 Skrulls that ended up on that submarine.
Oh, right.
So
yeah.
So I think that was one of them. Plus, he was always looking kind of shady. I don't know which one it was, but there were 3. One of them was one of the guy, that Emilia Clarke brought in
the first episode. Yeah.
But there were 3 of them that ended up on that submarine in certain positions.
And you see, I totally forgot about that because I started the episode. So I start the episode before in the afternoon, and then we had to go somewhere, and I was like, oh, I'll come back and watch it. So I totally forgot about the part where they you're right. Where they
3 Skrulls identities of people and ended up
because that was in the first part I watched before I turned it off and did my errands and came back. So,
but that's I can understand that guy's trepidation. Like I said, that's just a lot to deal with. That's gotta be pretty heavy. You're shooting down a United Nations plane. That's going to cause issues.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good.
It's one way of putting it.
There's repercussions that are gonna come from this. Repercussions that you may not even fully comprehend. Like I said, it could be mutually assured destruction. It could be something that causes World War III to start. Do you want to be the dude?
And that's their whole plan, right? The Skrulls are trying to take over this world.
200 years from now, do you want to be the dude who, when they look back, when we look back at World War I, there was a guy who shot Archduke Ferdinand, right? Who was supposed to kill him a couple times earlier, and things happened. And then he was getting something to eat, and Archduke Ferdinand is driving by at the same time. Unfortunately, I think that's one of those that was destined to happen. He's got to be sitting there oh man, this is my lucky day. Really wasn't, but you know what I'm saying? That's one of those things, the universe kind of putting it kind of in, come on, dude, I've given you chances here. You got to do this. You're not really going to get a second or third chance at this one, are you? Right.
Right.
This is a one-shot deal, but do you want to be the dude who's known as doing that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a interesting dilemma to put yourself in here. So we know that the Fairbanks was a real guy because he's, Gaia goes to his pod, right? And is able to see the memory of the ending
before
code.
that, they're sneaking through. They get to his house. Talos impersonates him, right?
Yeah.
And then
Sorry,
he gets
just
caught.
left you.
He gets caught impersonating him, so he takes him out. He goes to the house. He busts in on his kid playing video games, right? Because he's a kid in the middle of the night. That's gonna happen. And then he ends up sending a message back to Fury, like, I got him, second floor, whatever. And Fury, what we don't know is Fury knows right off the bat something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody ever calls him Nick, which I
Yes.
didn't pick up on.
Yeah. Yeah, and he said that in Captain Marvel, I believe, right? Or in one of these movies in the past, he said that line. So I love that they kind of bring that full circle back to us here.
He walks in and Talos is at gunpoint, but Fury has a plan because he has the guy's kid. They finally manage the situation, but Talos is trying to convince the guy to join his side, and he's like, I can protect you. And the guy's like, you couldn't even protect yourself coming through this door. Like, and he's kind of right. Is this one of those situations where he's trying to say he's just too old and out of touch and he's not with it, as the kids say, anymore?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like almost like you're too
You can't
you're
do this
too-
anymore.
yeah, you're too passive, right? Is kind of the way that I thought of it here. You're too passive. Yes, he does say no one calls me Nick in Captain Marvel. But what I liked about it too is it kind of shows how long Nick Fury and Talos have been working together, that they have this established code, right? Where he's going to say, if I say Nick, I'm here on this, like if I say Nick, right, then something's wrong, where they kind of have this established thing. And so the kid's like, are you going to kill my dad? It's like, okay, this kid doesn't even know that his dad has been replaced. Because we do see that this guy does exist. He is somebody that is, so he's not like a Skrull that has been in this position for a long time. He's relatively recent. He's in the little
the building
hallway of all the Skrull captives
inside the nuclear power plant where they're where they're holding everybody.
And they end up killing him. Talos just shoots him.
Well, understandably, it's not they, it's just Talos, because he makes the comment about, is your daughter feeding you bad information or something? Or is your daughter the traitor feeding you information? And that, I mean, every man has his limit, and that was his.
And I think also that told him, like, now's the time, right? Now's the time to call Gaia, have her get this stopped, and then, like he says to her, run. Because he kind of was thinking probably at that point,
they know
your cover's blown. Yeah, you're gonna have to get out of there. But I really liked the Nick Fury part where he shoots him in the kneecap, and he's like, maybe I'll aim higher, and then he points at his head. He's like, or maybe lower, and he points at his junk.
Okay, but here's the question: the human version has his genitals there, right? I mean, this is just gonna sound weird, but where's the genitals on the Skrulls? Like,
it's a good question. What I would think is when they shapeshift, they now have the genitals, so it would still hurt them. Even if they're not there. Even if they're not there.
No, I mean, it's still gonna hurt, but I'm just saying in general, like, that made me think, like, on an actual Skrull, like, where would the genitals be? And then I was like, why the hell am I thinking about genitals on?
But if there's a person that knows that answer, it's Fury, because he is married to one. So I think he would know probably the most intimate information about them.
I was thinking we'll never get the answer because the only person who would know would be Stan Lee, and he took the answer to his grave.
So we also get this end scene that we'll get to in a little bit here, where it has, Nick Fury's wife again, who is trying to get in contact with Gravik, and doesn't. Some people are theorizing that it sounds like Don Cheadle's James Rhodes on the phone. I couldn't hear it clearly enough to know.
I could. Before that, though, we had another appearance from Olivia Colman, who turned her. She didn't like the fact that Fury put the camera over the owl's eyes, so now she's got an eye patch over it. And she's got a bunch of stuff she's dealing with as well. I just love her character, man. I don't know why. She tickles me.
Yeah, I think she's going to have a little bit... I think she would have to have a little bit more of a bigger role in the next few episodes of maybe... I would hope. Because it seems to have been taking place a lot in Europe here, so I hope that she has some more role to play.
And she talked about she was doing her best work at the butcher shop, which we talked about last week. But in all fairness, you said you believed, and I thought so as well, that we would get more in the back half of Emilia Clarke's character. And that might not be the case. Because
I still think we will.
She's
running out.
She's running out. She's put like a shrub on top of her motorcycle, which, okay, sure, I guess.
It hides it well.
Yeah. And then she gets caught by Gravik.
And he knew. I mean, he's already there waiting.
Yeah.
With his lights on. What? Now, I don't ride motorcycles or bikes. Like these type of bikes. So I don't know. But would it throw you off that much when the light comes on to swerve like that?
I think maybe depending on how bright the lights are.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially now, there are a lot of people who complain about like these these new bulbs. And
yeah, some of those are really bright.
So if you're driving through the woods and it's pitch black dark, and then those pop on, like that could blind you temporarily, I guess, maybe, and cause you to skid out of control. I like Emilia. I like Emilia Clarke's character where she's like, no, you're gonna look me in the eye for this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she gets shot. And we know that she dies because she turns into a Skrull again. But I just have to think that this is going to be the ultimate way Gravik is going to get back at her, at Talos here, is by turning his daughter into the first Super Skrull. And maybe it causes her to lose her memory. Maybe it causes her to just become kind of like this brute force that is going after her own dad. I don't know. That's just kind of what's on my mind. I wouldn't be shocked if I'm wrong, but just kind of what I'm thinking here. But yeah, then Priscilla, which is Fury's wife, is calling, we presume, somebody. And she asks to speak to Gravik and is denied because he's, I guess, currently busy killing Gaia. But like I said, some people think it's Rhodey. I said last week, I wouldn't be shocked if Rhodey is a Skrull at some point in this series. And the way that he was gleefully maybe wanting to fire Fury, and the way he's been... Maybe he is a Skrull.
Yeah, in this whole series, yeah, it's one of those, you don't know who is who at all in this series. Just about everybody we've seen at some point could possibly be a Skrull, and they started it off with Martin Freeman.
Who we have not seen since.
Yeah. So... I mean, anybody. The president could be a Skrull that we don't know. Like they've got. We keep seeing these various people, including the guy who played the villain in Happy Gilmore, is a Skrull. I guess he's working for a Fox News affiliate.
Yes.
I love that guy just from his thing as Happy Gilmore. He's been trying to get a sequel for Happy Gilmore for a while now. And I think it would be great to see that guy again in that character, but it's just me.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing that they haven't touched on as much in this show as I thought they would, is like the paranoia of not knowing who is a Skrull and who isn't. I'm surprised they haven't touched on that. So maybe that's going to be more in the final 3 episodes or something. But especially if Rhodey is revealed to be it, I would think maybe at that point Fury might have a little bit more like, oh, I'm a little more hesitant to speak to people. But yeah, anything else about this episode we didn't talk about? Like I said, this was a little shorter, so it's a little easier to kind of run through here.
I don't know. Part of me kind of wishes they would maybe give us a little sneak peek for the next week, but part of me's glad that they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I think later in the week, Disney usually sends out a snippet or something.
Yeah, I used to, when we did Superstore, I used to be able to have a little segment at the end on our show, right? Where it'd be like, all right, here's the synopsis for next week, and there's a trailer, and, what do you think? This show, we can't even really do that because their synopsises are like 6 words, and they barely shed a light on anything, and they haven't put one out for the next episode yet. Even when I was doing Ted Lasso stuff for our soccer podcast, we'd have a synopsis or something to talk about to preview ahead here, but we don't have that this week. It's a shame. But I do like that these series are at least weekly, so we can speculate. We can have a podcast speculating. Like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do for Echo when that comes out, because that's just dropping all of them at once.
There's what else we got?
Yeah.
There's that Loki's supposed to be out.
Yeah, in October.
There was something else I was. When does Coven of Chaos?
I think that's been pushed to next year. I know, because we'll definitely have to get you back for that too, because we did WandaVision.
and they have, it's supposed to be staying in what town was that? Whatever
Westview.
town it was. Yeah, Westview. But now,
there's been some
Captain
set leaks.
Aubrey Plaza's supposed to be in that, so that's...
Mm-hmm.
She's a little weirdo, so that's going to be intriguing because you never know what's going on with her.
I think Sacha Baron Cohen was tapped to that, or
and then there were I
maybe
think
another
at one
show.
point there was talks about spinning off Aubrey Plaza's character from that show.
For which one?
Like I think at one point I saw there were talks about spinning off Aubrey Plaza's character from Coven
There was
of
rumors.
Chaos.
I don't know if they'll do it now because it seems like they've been slowing down on. The way I would distinguish the Bob Iger and the Bob Chapek eras here is the Bob Chapek era was we're announcing 35 projects a year, and the Iger era right now is all right. Hold on that. Hold off on those.
Well, plus there's the aspect of not the streaming isn't really
profitable
for him, and now you have the writer strike and the actor strike.
Yeah,
that
could
might
be happening.
Coming up. So like, this all is kind of bubbling, and at some point that pot's gonna boil over. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Some quick news here. There was news that broke on Friday saying that Jennifer Garner is going to be reprising her role as Elektra from the 2003 Daredevil film and her spinoff in Deadpool 3. So yeah, should be fun.
Man, they're bringing everybody into the MCU. Like,
yeah, I think Deadpool 3, if I had to take a guess, there's rumors that it's like about the TVA and stuff from Loki and stuff. What I would think here is that it's going to be something like there's a comic run called Daredevil Kills the Marvel Universe. I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of do that, but him killing the Fox Marvel Universe with all their X-Men and the, Jennifer Garner, Elektra and stuff, and
that allows them to bring the new versions in.
Yeah, that's what I would That's what I think they're going to do. And it allows for him to come over into the universe here or something.
So speaking of
interesting.
which, how scary would it be to live in the MCU?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've talked about it before, I think, on our shows before. But if I'm in New York, I'm moving. 'Cause most of the stuff happens in New York, but you also get stuff at Sokovia.
Just in general, like,
Yeah.
okay, She-Hulk took place in LA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, we publicly know about gods. So here's the thing. Okay, we know Thor and Loki. Like the public knows Thor and Loki, and these people exist. That the Norse gods exist, right? So to me, just my thoughts, that tells me that there's all kinds of other gods that probably exist. The Egyptian gods, the Roman, the Greek gods. Zeus is not a good dude, right?
Yeah.
That means Poseidon is ruling the seas out there. Okay? Like, I don't want to get on a cruise ship now. I don't know what kind of mood Poseidon's going to wake up in. If there's gods, that means there's demons and devils. And we know there's demons because, or at least a few people know, because who was it? Madison from She-Hulk said she was partying with a demon in She-Hulk.
Yes. Yeah.
So that, okay, we know there's demons out there. There's aliens that can come through a portal at any given point in time, right? We know there's at least 2 Hulks out there. To me, if there's 2, that means there's got to be a bunch more. Or people trying to be Hulks. Like, this has got to be one of the scariest worlds in the world to live in. Because every time you go out your door, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you know aliens exist and can travel here and snap entire 50% of all life, it's going to be... I feel like you're going through a midlife crisis every day at that point. Because you're like...
And here's the thing with aliens. So, you know, I go down these weird holes and look at things. And, okay, us as humans, we've managed to travel to the moon. Some people don't believe that. That's their belief, right? I believe we went to the moon, okay?
Me too.
Right? But we haven't been able to make it much further, right? And I don't know who it was, but there's some very smart physicists. So it might have been like Stephen Hawking or Einstein, someone in those realms, who have said if aliens ever do show up and we do get proof of life, chances are it's probably not going to be good for us because they've managed to travel from where, even if it's Mars, they've managed to travel from wherever they are to here, which means they are vastly superior to us technologically.
Yeah,
which means
yeah.
we pretty much don't stand a chance. And then you just saw Independence Day for the first time.
I was going to say,
right?
well, you know what? That movie made me believe we can do it, all right?
Okay, but we don't have we don't have Big Willie over there. You know, Will Smith tried to help us out, punching aliens in the face and knocking them out, though, right?
We have real Jeff Goldblum and real Will Smith, though, so we just get them to do their roles over again.
But I mean, I don't know if a MacBook is going to be able to give them, you know, a virus like that.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, like I said, I would be scared to death every single day living in the MCU.
I'll just say, too, that movie is peak Jeff Goldblum, man. He's got, like, his
it's
shirt
so...
open. He's got the hair puffed out. I mean, yeah, that was peak Jeff Goldblum.
Like I said, that was Will Smith at his smithiest.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I thought he would have a bigger role in that movie than he did, actually.
How much bigger of a role do you need him to have?
I felt like, I mean, he doesn't show up until the first 20 minutes. He shows up 21 minutes into the movie.
Okay, so it is with an ensemble cast.
Yeah, it's more ensemble than I thought it would be.
But I mean, he plays a major part. One, he knocks an alien out.
Yeah.
And then
no, he does a lot. I'm just saying, like, screen time wise, I thought he was in it a lot less than I thought he would be.
Did the speech get you fired up?
It did. I was like, God damn it, we can take him.
Dude, show me how to fly a plane. Let's go do this.
Actually, watching it on July 4th too does do a better job of it too.
So like I was telling you last week, it's great because that Twitter that Twitter feed that I was telling you about, it starts. They tweet a few times during the year, but it comes alive because, like I said, I think everything starts the 1st or 2nd in the movie. So imagine if there's a dude who has sources in like the White House or getting, and so some of the stuff is like sources are saying that the president is evacuating the White House, stuff like that. So it's kind of following along with the movie. So it's one of like 3 Twitter feeds that I have on, so I get notifications for it. So I won't get notifications for another year. But next year when it comes, like it'll pick up, and it's one of those where like I look at it and it's like, oh man, like
Yeah, that was especially the fact that he gets into a plane himself too. I'm like, now look, this is what I told my wife too, not to go too far off on the Independence Day stuff, but we've wrapped up the episode. You have, how do you not become president of the world and for life after, look, his approval ratings were in the tank, right? And then Independence Day happens and
his approval ratings are going to shoot up. Yeah. It's going to go up a couple points.
He doesn't hide. He gets into the plane. He makes this great speech. He unites the whole world around it. I'm never not voting for the guy at this point.
So speaking of the speech, one of the things that I saw this last weekend that came out was initially when he did the speech, like it was just, he was just supposed to give the speech and then they were supposed to kind of like just go down and give him his gear. Like there was supposed to be no applause. There was supposed to be no clapping, but all the extras and the people there got so inspired by how he gave the speech. Like it motivated them, and then they started cheering, and then they're like, all right, that kind of works. Leave it in the movie. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'll have to watch the second one now. I see Bill Pullman's in it, it says. So
he is, and I saw something from Vivica Fox. She said she kind of is,
that they should have brought Will Smith back, right?
Yeah, like she kind of knew that.
Do we know why they didn't?
So
it was pre-slap, so I'm kind of confused on why they didn't.
He was doing something else, or he was getting ready to do something else,
and they just didn't wait. He
said he would, because it was up in the air for a while in Hollywood. There have been rumors for years about a second Independence Day. And I saw something he talked about. He wanted to move forward and not back because he hasn't done many sequels, other than like the couple Men in Blacks. But other than that, he really hasn't done a ton of sequels, right? And it was going to cost like $50 million to get him, and that may have been one of the biggest reasons. Like that's a lot of money, and especially when you're looking at it like 20 years later,
Yeah, box office wise, it didn't make enough to pay Will Smith $50 million. I'll say that much.
But who's to say it wouldn't? It could.
That's true. That's true. If he was in it, yeah.
But he also, I think he was also on his kind of downstring of movies at the time, too. Where things were kind of going downhill for him movie wise, where they weren't hitting the box office like they used to be. So I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot more into why he didn't appear in it. But I just remember, man, that thing was a phenomenon. I just graduated high school, right? Mm-hmm. I leave for the Army in like 3 months. So this is like my last summer of freedom as a teenager, right? And I go see this movie because it's just blowing up all over the place. And like, that was one of those movies, man, back in the day. Like, you had to be there for that. Like 5-year-old you would have loved that thing.
Yeah, it was good. So while it's scary to live in the MCU, I think it's scary to live in Independence Day world after that movie happens, because a lot of the cities are done too at that point.
Well, I mean, they got to the point where they said they could pretty much destroy everything on the planet within like 36 hours. So
yeah.
Here's a question for you. You're sitting home one day, newscasts go crazy, and you see that there's alien spaceships that have actually entered our atmosphere. There's one over DC, New York, LA. What are you thinking and what are you doing?
I'm pretty close to DC, so I think I'm effed either way here. I'd probably have to head out somewhere, middle America, where they're not going to put a spaceship, like Montana. That's probably a good spot. I do believe in aliens, but I I wouldn't like them just hovering over top of us. The fact that some people in that movie were like, let's just talk to them. I was a little like, what are you doing? Get out of there.
Well, I mean, some people are going to think that way. Like maybe they're here to help us and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but you don't put 3 huge spaceships over top of the
then
places
there's Russell.
gonna, yeah.
Then there's Russell Case, who says he was abducted by aliens years before.
Yeah.
You got to think, was he? Did he really?
Oh no, I definitely buy it. Yeah, I think he was. Yeah. But we'll wrap it up here. We'll talk more Independence Day another time.
We got another year, so
yes. But thank you all for indulging us. If you stuck around after we were done the Secret Invasion episode 3, you can follow us on all of our platforms in the notes below. We are now not just tweeting, we are now weaving some threads over on Threads, if anybody's interested in that. I have to sign up the account, actually. But I've done it for myself and for some of the other podcasts. So, but yeah, so you can find us over on Threads and watch us weave whatever we're weaving over there.
I'm trying to get on Blue Sky.
Yeah, well, does Blue Sky, that's still invite only, right? And
yeah. So like people, I think they say people get like 1 invite a week, so you got to know someone to get it. But that seems to be the one where people are like, that seems to be the new hot one. So I'm trying to get on there too. I think I just signed up for Threads.
I was gonna say, how many? Yeah, Blue Sky only has 50,000 users.
But it's actually, I think it's from Jack Dorsey.
Okay.
I think it's from the actual original people who started Twitter.
Yeah. Apparently it is at... Yeah, it says 50,000 users. How is that?
There's a wait list, and then I've seen people that I interact with on Twitter who finally made it on there. Because like I said, they know someone who's got an invite and they get...
I like Threads a lot, though. I mean, like, it is a very simplified Twitter. I like that. You don't have to worry about hashtags, just... follow who you want to follow. It's already got like 100 million users, so yeah, it's a big deal now. Blue Sky waited too long. I think they kind of lost their thunder now that Threads was like, here we are with no code needed, just sign up.
But Threads has the issue of if you delete it, it deletes all your entire Instagram account.
Does it really?
Yeah. That's something that's recently come out. If you delete your account because it's connected through Instagram, it deletes everything. So it's one of those,
don't delete your threads. Just stop tweeting. Just stop threading.
Yeah, they're working on it apparently to
yeah.
But everything's tied together. So if you cut it loose, you lose everything.
But yeah, you can find us over there too. Thank you all for watching and listening along here. We will catch you next time when we start the back half of Secret Invasion episode 4.